Hi loves. So let's talk about EDS and physiotherapy. I've been diagnosed with both hypermobility and classical Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And for those of you who are diagnosed with this, it's going to be very important for you to use physiotherapy as your main source of management for EDS. Because our collagen is faulty, we have a lot of issues around exercise and keeping strong and keeping stable. It's a good idea to start physiotherapy right away when you've been diagnosed with EDS, even if you are very active, because you want to make sure that your stabilizer muscles are working properly. We have prime mover muscles and we have stabilizer muscles. The prime mover muscles are like the aesthetic muscles, the beautiful muscles, the biceps. The stabilizer muscles are the ones that we don't really see. They're the ones that help assist the movers. Most people need to work on their stabilizer muscles in general, not just for EDS. A lot of the times we have underactive stabilizer muscles, and it can wreak havoc on the prime movers. That in turn can wreak havoc on our alignment and our joints, etc., etc. Physiotherapy needs to be your mainstay when it comes to EDS management, and that's because we're so unstable that we really need to sort of rehab ourselves when we learn that we have EDS. Normally, people's ligaments hold their joints together in place, but for us with EDS, because our collagen is faulty, our ligaments are very weak and they're not holding the joints in place properly. So the best that we can do is to strengthen our muscles that will kind of assist the ligaments a little bit more and help to keep those joints in place. So about 7 years ago, I was doing a lot of different exercises. I was doing weight training, Pilates, yoga, hiking, aerobics, every kind of thing. And I was doing that for many years before that. And I wanted to take weight training a little bit more seriously, so I decided that I was going to enter a fitness competition. I was following everything that I should have been following, and I was getting injured, I was getting stronger, and my joints were feeling a little better, but I was getting injured, and I was having a lot of myofascial pain, pelvic pain, low back pain. I couldn't understand what was going on. I was also wiped out all the time. I knew something was wrong. I mean, I already knew something was wrong before because my joints were hurting prior to this. But when I started seriously weight training, I really realized something was wrong. So knowing what I know now, I can't believe the stuff that I was doing because I was totally wrecking my body. But I didn't have the knowledge that I had EDS. I ended up being able to lift a lot of weight, and I was doing really well in that sense. I could see my muscles and feel my muscles getting so much stronger. I was eating a ton. This was also back when I didn't have as severe problems with gastroparesis. But now I do have more severe problems with gastroparesis, and I also developed acute pancreatitis about a year ago, which has now turned into chronic pancreatitis, and pancreatic insufficiency, meaning I don't absorb my fats, meaning I'm not absorbing a ton of what I'm eating or my calories. So right now I'm about 30 pounds under what I should be, and I've lost a ton of my muscle, but normally I am a lot stronger, and I have noticed, this is after years and years of physiotherapy, by the way, and personal training with corrective exercise, I definitely still notice a difference in how strong I am compared to before in terms of my stabilizer muscles, which is really, really, really important for daily pain and daily functioning with EDS. I really had to rehab myself. I had to take a lot of time off of just exercising at all because my whole nervous system was so on fire that I was having these really major, constant, massive episodes of full body pain, and it was just absolutely horrendous. And that carried on for maybe like 7 months to a year. And I just sat doing basically nothing for a pretty long time because I was pretty scared to work out. And then I had to slowly work my way up, and I had to go through so many different physiotherapists and so many different practitioners to really feel out what it is that I needed to be doing. Physiotherapy is always going to be a really important thing for you to do constantly with EDS, and I do it every single day. It's really important to find a physiotherapist who's going to not necessarily have a huge amount of knowledge of EDS, but who's going to take on the challenge of having you as a client. And that's because we go through so many ups and downs with EDS, and we have so many injuries that happen, and it could be over something really stupid like opening a jar, And it's just very frustrating for both you and the practitioner. And this goes for like all your practitioners, but you really need to find a physiotherapist who's willing to take a journey with you. There are just so many issues when it comes to getting strong with EDS that it's hard to even think of them all. There's acute injuries, there's chronic injuries, past injuries that are coming back to haunt you constantly. And I mean, everybody has those, like somebody sprains their ankle and that affects your entire kinetic chain. Don't get so in your head about like, I have all these problems and I'm so broken and there's something wrong with me. It's more just about how do we make ourselves more stable and not see ourselves as broken, but to constantly work on leading a functional life. Our nervous systems are very strange, and so we tend to get a lot of signals going off that other people don't tend to get. So this can make things pretty frustrating where it seems like we have some type of injury or tissue damage when, maybe we don't. If we do too much myofascial release or foam rolling, like massage, then our whole brain can kind of freak out. Our body is trying to keep itself together, right? And so if you release too much of a muscle, then that signal's going to go to your brain and your brain can just freak out because that tension isn't there anymore. And that's what it's trying to do. And that's why we have a lot of myofascial pain, a lot of muscle aches, a lot of things like that. We also have pain because of micro tears in our tissue. We have issues in terms of muscle tone and holding that tone and developing that tone because of our nervous systems and the funny way that they work. Some of us also have that issue because we might have things like tethered cord. And that's one thing that you're going to want your physiotherapist to test you for is things like Chiari malformation, tethered cord, cranial cervical instability. These are things that you're going to have to make sure and rule out before you start doing other parts of your body, like strengthening other parts of your body. These things can get in the way. And so sometimes a neurosurgery consult is necessary. Muscle tone is a signal from our nervous system, and sometimes that signal can be faster, it can be a bit slower, and so it can be hard for us to activate that muscle. So repetitive motions of strength training or contraction of that muscle is going to send a signal to our nervous system to activate that muscle quicker. One of the physiotherapists that I've seen who specialized in EDS wanted me to do all of the muscle contractions and the stabilization exercises multiple times a day, like up to 10 basically. So doing like 10 sets of 10 throughout the day. These are really minor movements, but that's what helps our nervous system get that patterning, is doing it constantly over and over and over. One of the biggest challenges with something like hypermobility or classical EDS is the proprioception, and I think this probably is for everybody with EDS in general, but our joint motion is just out of range and we're not sure, we're not aware, and so it's really important to be aware of that. And one of the things that we can do to be aware of our joint motion is to see a physiotherapist or a personal trainer who can tell us that we're out of our range and that our form is off because we're just simply not aware, but then also to record ourselves doing the exercise and try to do it in a mirror if at all possible, so that we can get sort of an inner sense of where that range of motion is supposed to be. Eventually in time you should be able to do the form in pretty good alignment and pretty good range, but you might still have some issues. So I would really encourage you to do it in front of a mirror if at all possible. Proprioception is such an important thing because it allows us to stabilize everything properly. It allows us to have balance. Proprioception is our sense of where we are in space. So doing these repetitive movements in this proper range of motion is going to help you to learn that neurological patterning, which in turn then helps you to have better proprioception overall, which means less injuries. When we're out of our range with our joints, that's when we get injured, especially when we introduce loads. So things like picking up a box or grabbing something from a shelf, or pulling open a door. Some of the other issues that can come up with exercise and physiotherapy that make it really difficult for us are nutrition. Like I talked about having the pancreatitis, we can also have things like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth where we're not absorbing and digesting things properly. We can have IBS, especially because of our motility issues. We can have gastroparesis where things just go right through too quickly into our system or too slowly. The SIBO is part of it as well. So that can make it so that we're not absorbing those nutrients properly. And if we're not absorbing nutrients properly, we're not going to be able to build muscle. Our muscles, for whatever reason, and I think this does have to do with our nervous systems, tend to waste more easily, so that, we have to keep on top of things. And this is why I'm stressing doing physio every single day. I notice that if I don't do it every day and I start missing a week, then I'm way behind. It is so easy to lose the progress that you made when you have EDS. Your physio needs to be able to brace and to tape you appropriately. If we brace something, let's say we brace your neck, then the stabilizer muscles in your neck are going to get weak if you're constantly wearing that brace. If you're not constantly wearing the brace, then it's okay, but if you're constantly wearing it, it might be an issue. Kevin Muldowney, who's written a book based on getting stronger with EDS, does state that bracing is a good idea when you are working on other areas of your body and you have unstable areas. So the area that you're not working, you brace, and then you work on that other area of your body. But he has a whole system in his book, Living Life to the Fullest, on how to go from A to B when you're doing physiotherapy. So buying his book and maybe going through that with your physiotherapist is always an option. I think most people with EDS probably need a pelvic physio. They are separate from the other physios who deal with the full musculoskeletal system. Pelvic physio is a specialty, and it really does apply to most people with EDS because of the spinal instability that we have and the hip instability that we have, which can lead to a lot of pelvic floor muscle tension and tightness, and then that in turn can affect the rest of our system. So it's really good to just get a consult, at least with a pelvic physio. PDTR is something to consider, proprioceptive deep tendon reflex. It's a type of therapy that can be added on to physiotherapy. PDTR is a neurological reflexogenic system that efficiently treats a wide spectrum of functional problems and solves musculoskeletal, gastrointestinal, hormonal, chemical, and emotional dysfunctions. The main goal of the PDTR treatment is to restore the optimal activity of the nervous system to a stimulus. So essentially you're hacking the nervous system. It's really difficult to explain and even more difficult to show you. I'm gonna see if I can actually get it done again and then bring you guys in with my camera. But basically it is a really interesting therapy that can do wonders. It's supposed to correct some of the imbalances that you have. And again, you need somebody who's really skilled in it, especially with EDS, because like I said earlier, our nervous systems are really wonky and they don't operate the same as other people's. I know physiotherapy is really boring and tedious and redundant and all that kind of stuff, but it really is important for us with EDS, and it's important to do it with full awareness, because that full awareness is something that you have to bring into every single movement that you do every single day with EDS. That's how we prevent injuries, is just being aware of how we're moving in space. Physiotherapy definitely doesn't feel like you're doing anything, but trust me, you're doing something. I know it doesn't feel like it at all. It doesn't feel like you're making any sort of progress. You could be doing it for months at a time and you feel like you're getting nowhere, but then when you stop doing it, then you're like, wow, okay. And of course, physiotherapy can be really painful, and that's like another thing that we kind of have to get through with EDS. It's just like how painful exercise and just generally movement is, and that's really difficult. Like, it's a mental thing too, right? Like, you gotta really find that thing that keeps you going. Like, maybe you put music on or something, or just like, you gotta have a purpose. You gotta have a reason as to why you're doing this every day. For us, of course, I mean, that reason is going to be functioning. So those are my tips, guys, for physiotherapy and EDS, and we'll talk more about these kind of things and about getting strong. And make sure you do your physio every day. Every day. Okay. Thanks for watching. Until next time, please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video.